Yard Sale by Mitra Modarressi. Spudville was a quiet town. The houses were clean, the yards were neatly mowed, and the people kept to themselves. Nothing strange ever happened in Spudville until one Saturday a handwritten notice appeared around town. Yard sale, it read, today only. Mr. Flotsam's place, 99 Crooked Hill Road. No one could remember a yard sale in Spudville before. They decided to check it out. Howdy, Mr. Flotsam said as people began to arrive. I cleaned out my basement and I figured I ought to have a sale. Things were a bit rickety and worn, but the prices weren't bad and everyone left with something they really wanted. But the next morning, things started to get a little peculiar. The Zing's new living room rug flew out the front door, along with their son Max. Miss Milton's new typewriter zipped off page after page of its own writing. When Mrs. Appleby's new telephone rang, it was her great-great-great-great-great-grandmother just calling to say hello. Frankie Frumpkin's new music box wouldn't stop playing a hoppin' polka that kept her family dancing all morning. When Mr. Twitchett planted some of the seeds he had bought, he instantly found himself surrounded by a garden of monstrous proportions. And when Mr. Rotelli tried out his pasta maker, it seemed to be missing its off button. The whole town was in a tizzy. By noon, a crowd of people had gathered at Mr. Flotsam's to demand their money back, but he was nowhere to be found. Taped to his door was a note that read, "Gone till next Saturday." "He's a crook," Mr. Rotelli said to no one in particular. "What did he sell you?" Mr. Twitchett asked. "Come and see." And Mr. Rotelli led everyone back to his house. By then, the noodles were waist deep. "Appalling," said Miss Milton. "Delicious," said Nellie Crumb, who had helped herself to some strands. Everyone tried a bite, and they all agreed that it was the best tasting spaghetti they had ever eaten. "You call this a problem?" Mr. Twitchett said. "You should see what I got stuck with." And so the group followed Mr. Twitchett down the road to his house. "Look at what's happened to my nice orderly garden," Mr. Twitchett said with a sigh. "What a jungle!" the crowd murmured. "Not a jungle gym," squealed the children, and they started climbing and swinging and dangling from the large vines. Everyone complimented Mr. Twitchett on his green thumb, and he beamed with pride. "If I may interrupt," said Mr. Frumpkin, "there's something else you all must see." He stepped forward with the music box. "It's been keeping us dancing constantly," explained Mr. Frumpkin. "It's out of control," added Mrs. Frumpkin. "It's a party," insisted Franny Frumpkin, and she flipped open the box to prove it. Suddenly, everyone was jitterbugging around Mr. Twitchett's yard and out onto his patio. They formed a conga line, and Mr. Rotelli had them doubled over with laughter as he did the funky chicken. When Franny finally shut the music box, they all agreed that it was the best party they'd been to in years. "It's a truly remarkable music box," said Mrs. Appleby, "but something very odd is going on at my house." The crowd followed Mrs. Appleby, whose phone was still ringing off the hook when they got there. "Don't answer it," she warned. "That phone is haunted. The last call I got was from Amelia Earhart." The crowd took a step back. "We should get rid of it," someone whispered. "Let's answer it," said Henry Haley, and he grabbed the receiver. Henry found himself talking with a singer named Elvis. It turned out they got along famously, and they even sang a rockin' version of Blue Suede Shoes together. After that, people were lining up to use the phone. "I can't wait to talk to my dear mother," Mr. Frumpkin said. "And I can finally get my great-great-great-aunt Sylvia's recipe for carrot cake," said Mr. Rotelli. "One at a time," said Mrs. Appleby, who was beginning to grow more fond of her amazing new telephone. "What a fascinating item," said Miss Milton, "but you must see what I bought." "To Miss Milton's," Mr. Twitchett shouted. Inside, the typewriter was still clattering away, and the stack of papers was growing. "It kept me up all night," complained Miss Milton. "How annoying," sympathized Mrs. Frumpkin. "How interesting," said Ned Quigley, who had begun to read some of the pages. They passed the sheets around, and they all agreed that the typewriter had real talent. It was then that the crowd saw the Zings hurrying down the street. Everyone went outside. "It's our son, Max," cried Mrs. Zing. "He's been stolen away by our living room rug," explained Mr. Zing. "Oh my!" the crowd exclaimed. "We should form a search party," Miss Milton suggested, but then they noticed a figure up in the sky moving closer and closer. It was Max. "That was great!" he shouted as he glided to the ground. His parents ran over and hugged him. Soon all the children were lining up to take Max's rug out for a spin. After that day, things were never the same in Spudville. The Zing's rug was always in great demand. The Secrets of Spudville by Miss Milton and her typewriter was on the bestseller list for a record 33 months. On Friday nights, everyone gathered at the Frumpkins' home for an evening of dancing. Mrs. Appleby, now known as Madame Olga, enjoyed a steady stream of visitors to her parlor, thanks to her new telephone. Mr. Twitchett opened his garden to the public and let the children have full run of the place. He passed along his produce to Mr. Rotelli, who used it at his Ristorante Rotelli, which got a 4-star review in the Spudville Standard. And as for Mr. Flotsam, the next time spring rolled around, he decided to hold another yard sale. Let's see what he has to sell. A toaster, a vacuum cleaner, a teapot, a fan, a lamp, looks like, maybe even old radio in the back. I wonder what those things would do when they were sold. Use your imagination and see if you can come up with a cute idea. I'm thinking maybe the toaster gives you secret messages for your day, tells you how your day is going to be, almost like a horoscope, or it will tell you to be kind to your friends, enjoy your day, gives you some positive messages. That would be cool. I enjoyed Yard Sale by Mitra Modarressi, and use your imagination and come up with your own stories.